Welcome to The Buzz. We're going to have some fun, hear things you'll never hear anywhere else, and learn how to take 1 hour off your marathon PR. That may be an exaggeration, but I am Buzz Burrell, and we're going to have real conversations with the people who help define this amazing sport of running, which often feels like more than just a sport. So send me your questions and comments to buzz@ultrasignup.com so we can do this together. This is a production of Ultra Sign Up. Thank you for joining me. This episode is made possible by Victory, the makers of a clever insole for running shoes utilizing a carbon fiber plate. That's right. Carbon fibers changed the world of running shoes, and now instead of purchasing an expensive shoe, you can just buy an insole to put inside your regular shoe. Super shoes are expensive, they wear out, and most are built for roads, not the rocky terrain most ultrarunners are actually training and racing on. Victory makes a high-mileage carbon-plated insole using a similar technology as super shoes. They're built to last over 1,000 miles, and they come with something super shoes do not, a 90-day money-back guarantee. So try them out. If they don't work for you, send them back and get your money back. Find these at FKTs.com. Hey team, this episode is brought to you in part by Arc'teryx, who just launched their new Sylvan shoe this spring. Arc'teryx took their fastest running shoe and made it faster with an ultra-responsive midsole and a carbon fiber composite plate. Built for speed, this shoe is for trail runners looking to move fast and maximize efficiency. The rockered shape of the midsole propels you from foot strike to toe off, while an ultra-responsive foam maximizes energy return and reduces fatigue. The carbon fiber plate adds extra stability so you can let it rip on uneven terrain with confidence, and outsole lugs provide solid traction on the trail. You can purchase the Sylvan 2 in an Arc'teryx store near you or online at arc'teryx.com. How old were you in your first race?
My first marathon I ran when I was 7 years old. It's crazy.
Wow. So you're 25 years old now. So that means you have 18 years of experience already. Is that right?
Yeah, 18 years of just suffering a bunch. Yeah, ever since I was a little kid, I'm still doing the same thing for 18 years.
Wow, that's amazing. Hey, folks, I'm now talking with Hunter Leininger. He's a young man who's now living in Austria. You can look up his whole bio on his website, hunterleininger.com. And boy, this guy gets the byline Endurance Hunter. That's kind of clever. But real briefly, he's from Georgia, and he has the fastest traverse of Iceland, unsupported for 370 miles. He ran the over 1,000 miles, covering the length of Florida. He was a 2023 solo adventure racing national champion, and he's on the team that set the Guinness Book of World Records for the fastest to climb all 50 states' highest points. Yeah, he's done a lot in his 18-year career. And so now, Hunter, let's get with it. You're living the dream in Austria. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. So I grew up originally in Florida and then moved to Georgia for a few years and just kind of chased the dream of being a full-time adventurer, and didn't really think it would be turning into like a full-time job and like a whole lifestyle. It's always been my dream since that first race. I got hooked on endurance sports and adventure racing and ultra running and all this stuff. And it was like, what if I could do more and more and then share the story more? And luckily over the past like 2 years, I'm able to do it full time. And last year I lived out in Colorado in my van and then decided, hey, Europe has a lot of cool adventures I've never seen before. So I moved out here, and now it's just like, oh, endless different mountains and trails I can go climb. And yeah, pretty exciting. Unfortunately, I broke my ankle like 2 weeks ago. So those adventures are a little delayed, but I'm getting to those soon.
Well, very sorry about the ankle break. Yeah, injuries suck, in my opinion. I don't think there really is a silver lining necessarily. I think it's just annoying. So glad you're working through that one.
Yeah.
Hey, let's go back with adventure racing. And
Yes.
we call it AR, of course. Just real briefly for people not quite sure about it, it's usually running and hiking, and then always multi-sport, almost always bicycling, then almost always a paddle sport, such as kayaking. And most importantly, you have to navigate. There's not courses never marked. That would be unthinkable. So there's kind of four sports, the fourth being navigation. And this can go for maybe one day, but often multi-day. And somehow you got into it at an early age. I presume your parents were into it if you started at age 7.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's all my roots and like still my favorite sport is adventure racing. Unfortunately, I don't do it as much anymore, but it's yeah, what I started. So when I was 7 years old, I would grow up watching my dad do adventure racing, and you explained it perfectly. It's basically like an off-road triathlon with map and compass, or what I kind of say is it's like Barkley, but like you have to bike and paddle in Barkley at the same time. So um, it's such a cool sport, so
That's
much
good.
fun. Yeah. And the best thing about it is it's a team aspect. So you always do it with other people. So growing up, my dad would do the sport. He would race with other people. And I was always be like, Dad, can I do this with you? And he was like, no, absolutely not. Like kids are not allowed to do this sport. It's way too dangerous. It's way too long. And at that time, back in, I guess that was 2008, there was no kids doing these races at all. Like the average age is 40 to 50 years old. The youngest maybe is like a 30-year-old doing these races. There was like no kids ever doing these. And I eventually convinced my dad to let me join him for one of these races. And we had to get special insurance and convince the race director to let this little kid in. I did the race, fell in love with it, fell into mud up to like my neck, and it was like up to my dad's knees. Like all these really fun things, and just playing in the woods with my dad, and just like hooked immediately. I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. Because like I grew up playing football and soccer, and like my family and my parents were on the sidelines cheering me on, but they weren't in the game with me. But adventure racing allowed me to like do this sport with my family in the sport with me. So I just got hooked on there, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. And just I think also seeing the reactions of a lot of these adults being like, wow, this kid did this sport. Like, that's crazy. Like, I'm crying because it's so tough out here. And this little kid is just like running and happy and smiling the whole time. So from that moment, it was just like, let's just do something more and more. So it turned in from a 6 hour race to 8 hour race to 12 hours to 24 hour work, the national championship when I was 10 years old. So the Vince Racing National Championship, 10 years old. The previous record was 24 years old, so about my age right now, and I did it at 10. So that was like my first big like, wow, okay, there's records you can go after out here.
Wow.
And so then it kind of got hooked on like,
Well, wow, indeed.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, Hunter, that's I can imagine, like you said, had to do some explaining with the race directors for someone who's that age. So good job in making that happen. And so I appreciate the fact that you kind of skipped, baseball, football, and basketball and went right to adventure racing.
yeah, pretty big jump difference.
And Hunter, but yeah, it's a little bit different, but you had that one liner, which I appreciate. It's kind of like Barkley,
Mm.
except you get to paddle and bike and you get to do it with teammates. But the sleep deprivation and the navigation is still there.
Yes, certainly, and I learned a lot that a lot of the skills I brought from adventure racing over to ultra running now. It's translates very well because adventure racing I think is a lot more uncomfortable and mentally draining than ultra running, but ultra running is a little bit more physically demanding because it's just pounding your legs nonstop. But the sleep deprivation has unfortunately been my superpower that I've learned over the years of like, it's probably not the healthiest that I've been sleep deprived since I was like 10 years old during these races. But at least like I've learned how to deal with hallucinations and sleep monsters and all these things where, and all the story I always tell is back to that 24-hour national championship race. I was 10 years old and going through that race, this 2 a.m. long like trek for like 5 hours or so. And I was so sleepy, but we couldn't stop moving because it was a cutoff or we'd be eliminated. We spent all this year training for this thing. I'm going to be the first kid to do this thing, break the record by 13 years. And instead of like my dad telling me, let's just stop and sleep, he's like, no, we're going to keep moving. So he hooked a tow rope. So a rope hooked to his backpack and hooked to my hip belt and dragged me while I sleptwalked for 3 hours through this race. I have no memory, nothing at all. And all of a sudden I remember like the sun going down, whatever, and waking up and the sun's up. I'm like, wow, what happened for the past few hours? Like, just teleported. So yeah, I've been dealing with sleep deprivation, and I will say it never gets easier. Like, you don't like build up a tolerance for it. So at least that skill I've learned pretty well into ultras and FKTs and stuff.
That's an incredible story. Let's drill into that for a brief moment. So, folks, for AR, the bungee cord is a thing, by the way. So, what Hunter described sounds insane, but actually, teams use it's just called the bungee cord, the bungee cord. And often, because it's team sport. It's not like first person across the line wins. No, it's the last person in the team across the line. So you have to stick together. So if someone's having a bad time, particularly on the bike, you
Yep.
bungee them. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a thing. And rather than being weird, personally, in my opinion, this is great. It's truly a team sport. Everyone has to work together. So I like the sound of this, except for the sleep deprivation part. So let's just to stay with this. So you obviously didn't fall down. You were sleepwalking. You don't remember, but you stayed upright. So that
Yeah.
means you were in a interesting way, extremely good at sleep deprivation.
I guess so. Like, I often ask my dad about that moment, that story, and like, what was going on? Like, how did I not fall? How do I not remember things? Like, he just said I was on the rope, and he would look back, and my eyes would be closed, and I'm just like wandering around. I would trip a little bit and like catch myself, and it's like, well, bushwhacking too. This isn't just like a nice paved road. This is like a trail that all of a sudden we go off the trail straight down into the river, or whatever. And I'm like asleep. The only memory I have is like, I guess halfway through this trek of there's a big raging river. And luckily my dad was smart enough to like shake me and wake me up. So I would like hop across this log on my like on my groin. I would just sit there and like hop across this log, got across the raging river and passed out immediately again. Like I don't remember anything after that until we got to like the transition area. Yeah, there's we could go on for the next 3 hours talking about different stories like that. And yeah, all the years when I was like, even at the World Championship, I
Wow.
had a similar story on the bike. I fell asleep while on the bike, like some, yeah, crazy ones, but luckily no dad things happening.
Right. Well, two things to follow up on this. You must have been asked since you were at a very young age that how was your how was your relationship with your parents? So
Yeah.
someone from the outside looking in could say, "Oh man, his parents were torturing him," and someone else could say, "Wow, it's great. His parents were showing him a different way to be in the world." So, how are you looking at this, being that young?
Yeah. No, I give my parents a lot of credit because from that very first race, I had to beg my dad. My dad was like, "No, this is not right. You should, this is too dangerous. We got to do some training or we need to have safety things in place." And yeah, I'm the kid. I have no say in what I should do. My parents have the ones be like, "Hey, you shouldn't do this," but they never pushed me into like, "You have to do this. You have to keep doing this. You got to push harder." It was more like, I think the great thing about adventure racing was you could choose your own race. Like the winners are going to get every single checkpoint, which are these flags that you use a map and compass and you go punch the flag in the woods. As you know, Buzz, I'm just explaining it. And so we could design whatever course we wanted. So if it's like, oh, my legs are hurting. Let's go get off the bike and we just go hop in the boat and start paddling. So it was like, my dad was no pressure on me. It was like, just go have fun. It doesn't matter. We're just going to be out there for the 6 to 8 hours, whatever it is. So it was very safe. And I always had my dad there. So if anything went wrong, he would help me. It wasn't like I'm this 7-year-old kid running out in the woods all by myself with no cell phone, no GPS, like super dangerous, especially in Florida. There's right, hundreds of times in Florida, there's alligators and snakes everywhere. So having my dad there was really key. I always say at the first few years, it was always like my family had this pushback of like, giving my dad kind of a hard time about this is way too dangerous. Why is he doing this? Like, this shouldn't be allowed. Luckily, my mom was supportive. So my parents are divorced, but I would go race with my dad and come home, and my dad would drop me off in my mom's house, and she would be like the best nurse ever and take care of me and baby me. And I would feel great. And then I would go back to my dad and go do this crazy next race. So that kind of
Wow.
kept it forever. So my dad was always there with me. So for 200 plus adventure races and stuff, FKTs, like he was there with me, so running with me, helping me. And then it came to a point when I was like 18 years old after we did the Eco Challenge race. that he was like, "I'm retiring. You go off and do your own thing, Hunter. I'll just be your support crew." And that's when it turned into these fastest known time, like FKTs and stuff, where my dad and my mom were my support crew when I was running. So they've been always part of it. They're still part of it. Like the race I was supposed to do in 2 weeks from now, the Tahoe 200, or 3 weeks, I guess. They were supposed to fly out and be my support crew. So they're still supportive 18 years later.
Gotcha. That's a good clarification. You weren't 10 years old off wandering around the woods by yourself. You were on a solid team. The team is your family. That's a good clarification to make. And before we leave the sleep deprivation topic, so what advice do you have? This is a big thing right now. Like you just mentioned, the Tahoe 200, as
Yeah.
the Triple Crown of 200s that Candace Burt started. And of course, the Cocodona 250
Yeah.
ended in May. So these super long distances are now a thing where sleep deprivation is a total part of the deal. This
Yeah.
isn't cardiovascular fitness. Well, to some degree it is. So
Yeah.
what advice, if any, would you have? I mean, pardon me for getting specific, but is it like, a caffeine pill once every 6 hours, Coca-Cola every 4, or as needed, or you don't do caffeine? I mean, what does this look like?
Yeah. Great question. I love getting tactical too. It's like it's great to tell the stories, but then it's like I do these things to like learn for the next thing, and then also like to become a better athlete, but also to become a better person. But yeah, I would say for most of the years, I never figured out the sleep deprivation. It was more just mental toughness, just like gut it out and figure out how to just keep pushing through and stay awake. And there's little tactics you can do, like singing, or the nice thing about adventure racing, you have teammates there to talk to you and help you through things. I guess in ultra running, you have pacers, but it's not really the same thing because in adventure racing, all four of you guys are all sleep deprived, you're all suffering. So you can kind of like rely on each other in that way because you know what you're going through. Where ultra running, your pacer is completely awake, they're perfectly fine. So they can kind of baby you more. I always say, so yeah, until about 2 years ago, I think I finally cracked some sort of code with sleep deprivation to like learn tactics and what to do. Um, so there are definitely things you can do. Like main one is most sleep deprivation comes from a lack of calories and falling behind on nutrition, I believe. Like I did a race 2 years ago out in the Gobi Desert, and I went 78 hours with no sleep, never really getting like any walking or sleep deprivation. It was just like because I was on top of calories the whole time. I never fell behind. And then like having a solid caffeine strategy. So I preferred to ramp up the caffeine. So instead of like night one taking 200 milligrams, whatever, I do night one. I usually can go 24 hours without getting sleepy much at all or anything. So it's usually that second night is where it starts getting harder. So 36 hours in or so, I start ramping up the caffeine. And the biggest thing is taking caffeine before you get sleepy. If I'm already like sleepwalking and eyes shutting and I'm trying to take caffeine, it's not really going to do much. It's going to take like an hour or two for it to finally like wake me up, and then I'm fine. So that to skip that 2 hours of crap, I like to take the caffeine before. So if I can do the math, hey, I'm going to be sleepy at 8 p.m. the second night. I backtrack like 3 or 4 hours and I start taking caffeine then, pretty
Gotcha.
heavily ramping it up. So, and then
In
it's
what
like,
form? Do you use a pill or do you...
yeah, I do the caffeine pills just so I can exactly regulate how much I'm going in and keep track of it. I even write it down. And it's different depending on the duration of races. So like adventure racing goes from 6 hours to done like a 12-day race. And as you know, fast FKTs, they go from an hour to the Appalachian Trail, 40 days. So really different. If you're talking about Cocodona distance and you're talking about even like the Colorado Trail distance, that's way different sleep deprivation tactics because Cocodona you could go through with no sleep or like a 15-minute power nap or so if you have everything dialed. But you're not doing that for the Colorado Trail. You have to like set the sleep. And then you're especially not doing that for the Appalachian Trail. You're sleeping full REM cycles every single night. So yeah, sleep deprivation there's no science to it. I think the more you experience it, I would hope it gets easier, but I think you have to like really learn and try new things because I didn't learn much at all besides just gutting it through until like 2 years ago. I started being like, okay, let's start experimenting with different things. And I think it comes back to make sure you're always fueling properly, never fall behind on nutrition, and also have pre-caffeine before you get sleepy. Those are the two main things I like. yeah,
Great.
help.
I like it. So,
Yeah,
Killian Korth gave me thoughts. He set the record,
yeah.
2025 on the Triple Crown. And I talked to him in person. I was actually when he finished in Moab, the last event. And so he was on the podcast, and boy, this guy is dialed, just like you were saying. He's very smart. He figures a lot of things out. And he was second at Cocodona 250. We're still mentioning that event. And he said something interesting about the sleep breaks. And so,
Mhm.
while, like you said, you pre-plan the caffeine, you get on it in advance rather than cratering and then trying to come back from it. But he does not do that on sleep. On
Mm.
sleep, he doesn't do a planned sleep break. He just goes until he does a face plan. Because then once he lays down, he's going to go to sleep. Well, in the past, he's tried to plan the sleep break, and if he lays down and sitting there for 20 minutes, he feels like he's just lost 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So, do you pre-plan your sleep, or you just kind of go until you can't go?
Yeah, again, it changes depending on the distance. If I'm planning a 1,000-mile FKT, I'm planning out the sleep. I'm doing 60 miles and I'm sleeping here. And then I'm doing 60 miles, sleeping here for this duration and keep going. When you're talking about 200 milers, I don't think a sleep plan is the best way to go. For me personally, might work better for others, but for me, I'd rather just go as much as I can and then just pass out on the ground on the trail and take a dirt nap for 15 minutes. I think that's going to be a better rest boost. Besides, like I I get excited coming into aid stations too and seeing friends and family and see other runners and the crew people. I'm get too excited, and then you have me go sit in a very comfortable, maybe like I have my van there, and it's a nice mattress, and there was AC running, and there's a comforter, and like at my whole family there. That also takes a lot more time for me to get in there, take off my clothes, get in bed, get all situated, and then if I'm laying there, I'm staring at the ceiling and being like, I'm not falling asleep yet. It's already been like 5 minutes, and I get anxious. You're not gonna waste time if you're sleeping on the ground. You fall down that and you just lay down and there's ants crawling on you, you're asleep. You're not thinking about getting comfortable. So
All
I
right.
prefer little power naps, but not for bigger FKTs. Like,
Good
I
call.
crewed
Yeah.
Tara Dower on the Appalachian Trail 2 years ago,
Oh,
and I helped her that last 2 weeks or so, and she did a lot of, like, dirt naps on the trail. So, like, that's when we were pushing that sleep deprivation, she wasn't getting full night rest, so instead of sleeping at the crew, she would just sleep on the ground for 2 minutes and then wake right up, and that's another really great tactic I learned from her, that I use for my FKTs, and most of my shorter races, so like 200 mile and below, is those like, yeah, 90-second power naps. It really works. It sounds crazy, but it really works. I would watch her do it. I'm like, this isn't doing anything, but I guess it works for her right now. I started doing it in my race and I was like, this is a game changer. It's so nice.
Okay. Well, listeners, we kind of gone off of this remarkable area of discussion and of Uber ultra. Maybe it's Uber running, and maybe that's a new term we should apply here, where sleep deprivation is indeed one of the tactics. And people are kind of going now, wow, great, I'm glad I'm learning about this. And other people are going, wow, this is really dumb. I never want to do this.
Yeah.
But that's how the sport of running goes, isn't it, Hunter? It's a huge tent. It's a lot of diversity under this big tent, and you're elucidating one end of the spectrum very well.
Yeah. That's, I'm sorry. When I did adventure racing for 13, 14 years before I even thought about ultra running. And when I heard of that ultra running, I'm like, that is so crazy. It's so stupid. Why would you want to run that long? And I did my first 100 miler like off a whim. I'm like, I'm going to sign up for this race next weekend and go do it. It was the worst pain I've ever felt. I was struggling. I was crying. It was like everything was going wrong, even though I've done way longer races. That was so much suffering in that moment. I was like, no, I don't want to run any more than 100 milers. And now I'm like the guy that doesn't want to run anything less than 200 miles. Like,
Okay, all right. I mean, there's massive psychological insight that could be toyed with here, but who knows? We don't know. We just know it's a big tent. We're all happy underneath
you know,
it. And you mentioned adventure racing. You mentioned ultra running. You mentioned the Eco Challenge. And I mentioned you to Danelle Ballingy. Her podcast released a few episodes ago, and she said, "Oh yeah, Hunter. I remember Hunter. What a great guy." And you, of course, remember her from Eco Challenge Fiji. So we're kind of on a little AR streak here.
that's cool. So cool. And
Yep.
like I said, I owe everything to adventure racing. Like that whole community, all the lessons I learned, all the suffering that like made me into the athlete that I am, but also the person I am and the perspective I have on things. So yeah, everybody in adventure racing have a special place in my heart.
Excellent. And Danelle made an interesting point that back in that day when she was doing it, the top ultra athletes were doing AR. They weren't
Yeah,
running because there's no money in running. There's just zero.
yeah,
And while adventure racing at the time with Mark Burnett, Eco Challenge, the person who invented all of reality TV, there's prize purse and there's sponsorship. And now it's kind of swung over the other direction. Now we
yeah,
mentioned a few people here. Tara, I mean, I heard Tara's number. It's a pretty decent annual salary. And
yeah,
so, same with Rachel, just signed on as well. So now really good athletes are ultra runners. It's
yeah.
become very professional and very, very competitive. And now you've come over. So I appreciate that you started with AR because you developed that toughness, right? That self-resiliency. And now you just kind of have to get the running thing down a little bit more.
Yeah.
And so tell us about that transition. What else are you seeing going from adventure racing into ultra running?
Yeah, no, great question. Like that transitional period was key for me. So I was only adventure racing, and then I graduated high school, and I had a business on the side. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to university yet. I'm going to take a gap year, focus on my business, and focus on training and maybe making this athlete thing a thing. Luckily, I got casted for the Eco Challenge TV show right when I graduated high school. So I was like, oh, perfect. Take this gap year, do the TV show, focus on my business, and then go back to university. And then it kind of went from there of like, okay, I did Eco Challenge, did really well, got some attention from like social media, then also from other TV shows. Because once you get on one TV show and you're one of the featured athletes, you kind of like get people to reach out to you to be another TV show. So, and it ended up going on another TV show called Race to Survive Alaska. That was
Oh,
on Peacock and Hulu. My dad and I got dropped off in Alaska, and we had to race hundreds of miles over 50 days with all of our gear on our packs and no food. So we had to hunt, fish, and forage for all of our calories. So it was like an extreme adventure race, extreme eco challenge, and it was a crazy experience. I lost like 35 pounds, and I went into it looking like this, so it wasn't like I went into it bigger. Yeah, it was a crazy experience, and from there, it was like, okay, well, I can maybe like make a living off of just doing these TV shows and just doing content and stuff. And that's when I would kind of transition to more of like adventure racing. I almost like tapped out. The even though these TV shows were massive, like millions and millions of viewers, it didn't really grow the sport itself. It didn't really grow the racing. So, like doing the national championship, you win that. It doesn't really change your life. You don't get paid for it. The sponsors don't really care about it. So, it's hard to make a living off that, except if, yeah, almost no one is a full time adventure racer. So I started like sharing just content from my adventure racing and some of my ultras I was doing. And then I quickly realized, wow, there's a huge market here for ultra running. Like, even if I'm not the top of the sport, like Jim Walmsley, I could still make a living off of just social media. So I just started filming all my runs and not really thinking that like this is going to be a job for me. And it quickly kind of gained a following through just doing these crazy runs. And I was always attracted to doing the longer and longer races. So did that 100 miler and instantly went into a 300 mile Benton Mackay FKT. So that was like an instant jump to that. And then it was like, all right, what's longer than that? Do the Florida Trail, do Iceland, do Colorado, like all these different runs. And I kind of built up this audience that wants to just see these crazy extreme adventures. And nobody's really documenting these that much. At least like
well,
now. Yeah.
let's pause for a second here. So what happened, I should say, it was AR to FKTs to ultra
Yes.
running. So that's
Yeah.
really the transition. This is very interesting because
I've
again,
done almost no ultras the past 5 years. I've only done like 3 official races. It's all just been FKTs.
gotcha.
Yeah.
And so going back to what we've been talking about, obviously Tara Dower, is one of the top ultra runners. Of course, she became known for her overall FKT in the Appalachian Trail. And what was huge, part of the term went viral in May was Rachel Entrekin's overall win at the Cocodona 250. Rachel has 15 FKTs to her name from the Wonderland Trail, Timberland Trail around Oregon. And so there's a theme here. I
Mhm.
kind of think that there's a certain group of people, such as yourself, who've learned how to be tough, self-resilient, and take care of themselves. And so their transition to ultra races maybe would be a little easier for them.
Mm. Yeah, I didn't really think about that. But yeah, I often like, yeah, Tara doing that place trail, you have to suffer a lot. So her going into 100K, 100 miler, like you learn a lot from that to just push through things and how to deal with it. But yeah, it is interesting. Like FKT is almost like a niche of a niche already. Like ultra running is a niche sport, and FKTs is even more of a niche. And for me to like get, yeah, 100 million people a year to watch the videos about FKTs is like a really cool thing. It's like, wow, this, I felt like I have a personal draw and inspiration to do FKTs more than I even have to do races. Like me to win a race, I don't really get that fulfillment, but me to do an FKT, like wow, that's something cool that lives forever. I'm competing against everyone in history. This is just a route. It gives me a lot of like inspiration to go do these things, and luckily people get, I think, all really inspired by certain FKTs that like the general public can understand. Like running the length of Florida or running across Iceland, the whole country of Iceland. That's a very easy thing to understand. So like compared to, yeah, if you like Zagama just happened. Incredible race, so cool, top of their sport. But like you tell a random person that doesn't really run, oh, this guy just won Zagama. They're like, okay, I don't know what that means. Or you tell that same guy, I ran across Iceland. It's like, wow, that's the most insane thing. Even though Zagama's arguably way better than me running across Iceland. Um, I think just that inspiring the general public is what drew me to FKTs. And then I realized with like, yeah, Cocodona, Rachel at Cocodona, like you can inspire a lot of people too with winning these races and doing that too. So yeah.
Wow, that's very smart, Hunter. That's one of the experience things that you got from being in the sport so long is you're good at this. I mean, you have a good analysis because nowadays it's a professional sport. I mean, there used to be a time where you really needed to have another job, but now it's professional. You know, the top people are all doing this for a living and how to do it. You know, how to navigate that pathway. I mean, there's we just talk about sleep deprivation, and of course there's fueling and training, but it's how to be a professional is kind of interesting in and of itself. And at this point, I'll note that running is mountain ultra trail running is very different because it's the sponsorship business model.
Mm,
So normally you're on a team, okay? Football, baseball, basketball, you got a salary, you're on a team. World Pro Cycling, you're on a team, you know, Trek, Visma, et cetera, et cetera. But in Mountain Ultra Trail, you're not on a team. There's almost no prize money. So you are being sponsored, which is kind of different.
mhm.
Or as you are learning to do, and I want to hear more about this, you're learning how to generate your own content. So you're kind of, what's the word? You're a pirate. You're a freelancer. Let's put it that way. You're a freelancer. You're generating your own content from what you do. You're getting some eyeballs and impressions. And so you can support yourself by generating your own content.
Yeah, I think the really cool thing about our sport right now is there are so many different ways to make a living out of it. Like, and it doesn't mean everybody has to make a living out of it. Like some of the best athletes in the sport are full time something else, and they run part time, and they're the best. But I think there's just so many different paths that it's not just hey, this set road to make a living out of it. I think that was also a little bit scary at the beginning for me of like, man, I don't know if I could win Western States. I don't think I could win UTMB and like train for that. So like, how am I supposed to make a living out of this? And luckily, I had no pressure because I luckily had been kind of paving my own path and since the very beginning with like just me racing, but also me living and making money off of yeah, my lifestyle. And that's why the TV shows came out of nowhere. I was like, who would have thought that I could make a living off of TV shows and just like go from TV show to TV show? But then I kind of wanted more control of what I wanted to do, not just be like, hey, if Survivor reaches out to me and I had to do Survivor, it's like, I don't really want to do that. But yeah, it makes you good money, whatever. So I wanted to like kind of control my own thing. So that's why I came up with these like projects of like, okay, I'm going to run across Iceland. Let's partner with certain brands to like help me make that happen. And it takes a lot of work, a lot of meetings, and it also like you have to prove yourself to these brands. Um, but it is a kind of cool that you don't have to fit a certain mold. Like for me, like this year, I got signed by Teva and Victory Insoles and OnlyFans. So I have these three different sponsorships that are paying me as an athlete for the full year. And I never would have thought that. Like I didn't win Western States or anything to get these year-long contracts. That would just came from me paving my own path and with content and doing FKTs and stuff. So it's pretty cool.
Good. That's smart. Yeah, Victory, by the way, is actually spelled VKTRY. They kind of crush it together. And that's those high carbon, it's a carbon fiber insole.
Yeah.
You can kind of put it on the floor and bend it and let go of it. It goes boing, springs 8 foot into the air. And so, yeah, you got a little bit of sponsorship there. And just staying with this for a minute, nowadays the brands want you to be the content creator.
Yep.
And so it used to be that, okay, you're going to go win a race. When I was at Ultimate Direction, I used to have people email me all the time saying, so do I have to finish in the top 3 to be sponsored? And it's like, sorry, it's not really like that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're winning, like you said, UTMB or Western States, then we're going to send a camera crew to meet you and film you, and you're going to go about your business. But
Yeah.
other than that, brands now want content creation from the athletes themselves, and you embody that.
Yeah, and that's a cool thing about, again, there's different levels too. If you're Jim Walmsley, Hoka's not paying him to make content on himself and him to have a GoPro and filming while he's winning Western States. Like they don't want that. So like the top of the sport, they have the brands would do the media for you, but everybody else, you have a better advantage to make the content. So like Victory, huge sponsor, great sponsor of mine, like great partner over the past 2 years. We partner on projects. It's like, hey, we want to do this race, and Hunter, we would love to support you to do that race and use our product and train for it. So like last year, they partnered me on the Colorado Traverse. So I wanted to be the fastest to run across the Colorado Rockies all the way across the state. And yeah, I worked really closely with them to fine tune the product and like to train with it. And it's a carbon insole that slide into my shoes. And the entire run, I was wearing these carbon insoles and really like testing it because they have not tested it on like crazy long trail races. They have a lot of marathon runners and road runners perfecting it, and it's proven. And I was like, all right, let's test it to the extremes. And what's more extreme than running across the Colorado Rockies? So cool little projects like that is not the traditional path. Like, yeah, go win Western States and you have a salary and you're set. But everybody else, it's like, yeah, you have to come up with your own different ways to, if you want to make a living out of it, you want to do it full time. Yeah.
Right. This is again, this is for people who are listening who enjoy the sport, want to learn more about how the sport goes now, and also for young people, because at age 25, you're in that category, who want to thrive in the sport and they, want to try to make a living. So you're giving some good tips, some good insights here. Another interesting way to look at it in terms of what I would call your freelance portfolio, rather than being on a team, we go back to cycling. Of course, ultra running has learned a lot from road cycling. It sounds sort of odd, but the whole high carb thing came from road cycling. These people have a lot of money. They got trainers. They're living in camps. They're doing a lot of testing. So a lot of the science that we're seeing coming into running actually came from World Pro Tour cycling.
Yeah.
An interesting example is a number of years ago, the person who won, actually it was called Dirty Kansas at the time, the 200-mile gravel race, but later now it's called Unbound Gravel in Kansas. He was offered a spot on a World Pro team. Wow, he's made it. He's going to be on a salary. He turned it down.
Yeah.
He said, I don't want to do that. That sounds awful. He was making enough money picking up sponsorships like you are and generating content like you are that he didn't want to be part of a World Pro team. He just wanted to continue to freelance.
Yeah. It's cool. Really cool.
Yep. So does this mean, Hunter, that you've had to get good with GoPros? I mean, what does this actually look like? I mean, are you good at social media? You spend a few hours a day? Again, I'm just trying to tease it out for people who want to get into the sport, because I think you have a lot to instruct them with.
Yeah, I think it all came back to like what's your motivation for it too. If you're just like, I want to make a
Okay.
living off of this, and that's a different motivation. Where at the time, I just picked up a GoPro because I look back on the 200 plus adventure races I did with my dad, and like we have no memories from that. We might have one picture or two from a few years. Like the first like 3 4 years of adventure racing for me, I have like maybe 10 photos from it. And I'm like, man, I wish I had like videos of this stuff. It would be so cool to look back on 8-year-old Hunter on like way too big of a bike, or like falling into a mud pile and just getting covered in mud. Like it was more for like me to capture these memories to look back on. And it came from a pure state, like I didn't care if millions of people watched this or just my dad and I watched this. It was just to like capture these things and yeah, look back on it myself. So I did that for years, and then I started just posting and just yeah, I started going a little bit more viral, not for the crazy extreme things I did. It was more for these like funny skit videos, whereas like I'm drinking a bottle of ranch while running, and like I just not taking what I do so serious. I think that's my key point of like I do some extreme things, but I'm also like lighthearted about like, oh, it's not that extreme. Like, yeah, it's okay. It's just fun, whatever. Because I do it for fun. I don't do it just to suffer and to, yeah, hurt myself. Um, so I think just, yeah, coming at it of why do you want to film it? If you just want to film it to make money, and that's another way to do it. But for me, it just for memories and capture it all and then end up, yeah, creating an audience and getting people to care.
Well, a key word here is authentic.
Yeah.
So thank you. That was an excellent clarification. And pardon me for paraphrasing, but I think people want authenticity, and that's what you're saying. If you're doing it just to make money, what's it going to look like? What's it going to feel like? Well, if you're doing it for a real reason, what is your motivation? Then it's going to come across to other people pretty well. And
Yeah.
so instead of, photos of you, off the side of the trail throwing up and so forth, and, this heroic images, it's the day in the life. And that's what you wanted to capture. You wanted to be real. I like that. That's a good bit of instruction.
Yeah. For sure.
And so, folks, I mentioned it's hunterleininger.com. And if you gotten interested in this by listening to this podcast, Instagram, it's hunter_Leininger. And YouTube channel, this one's really easy to remember, Endurance Hunter. Wow, that's a good byline. That's good job on that one.
Oh, thank you. That was a 12-year-old hunter thought it was a great brand name, so I got it.
You nabbed it. Yeah, I picked the low hanging fruit for the name of this podcast, The Buzz.
Yeah. Perfect.
Not super creative, but I think it works real well.
Oh, for sure.
So what's next, Hunter? You have a broken ankle. Sorry about that. That means you're probably not doing the Tahoe 200. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
What's the rest of 26 look like? Presuming, and not presume, but after your ankle recovers.
Yeah, that's like I said, it was a kind of unfortunate start to the year because I finally like the past few years, it's been I kind of just make whatever random project I want to do, and I sell the brands and I build this project around the brands, and then just move to the next one, and like going into this year, I luckily got 3 really incredible brands on board to be like, "Hey, Hunter, we wanna support you for whatever you wanna do this year." And if that's, yeah, train really hard to win some races, or that's FKTs or whatever it is. So very lucky to have those 3 brands, Victory, Teva, and OnlyFans to just support me through the year. And the plan was to do the Innsbruck Alpine. It's 110K here in Austria. It has 8,000 runners across the festival. It's like as big as UTMB, but like as Americans, I never heard of it. But it's such a big race. It was so cool. I was really excited. I trained really hard for like 5 months for it, and I was yeah at the start line ready to like give it my all to try to win it. And unfortunately, 10 kilometers into the race, I stepped on a rock wrong and completely just broke my ankle. So yeah, not a great way to start the season, but luckily the recovery is going good, and I don't think it doesn't need surgery. It doesn't need anything. I'm back to walking already 2 weeks later. So that's great progress. And I was supposed to do, my first A race of the year was Tahoe 200. I was mainly just training for that and yeah, fine tuning everything. And this Innsbruck race was just supposed to be a tune up for that. Unfortunately, with that race being like 21 days away and I'm just walking now, I can't do that race. So we had to pull out of that one. And I had some other like FKTs in one big FKT in July. And then it was supposed to be a gap until the Moab 240 in October was going to be my next big like a race of the year. So it was going to be a lot of racing this year. I went from last year, I did one big FKT, no races. Now this year is supposed to be 3 to 4 races and like 2 FKTs. So I think everything just got pushed back a little bit. So instead of doing Tahoe, if I'm recovered in time, I still might do that July FKT. Um, and then Moab 240 is going to be the big focus. I have Victory on board. They're like super supportive. So we were building this whole season around Tahoe, and kind of pioneering some new product and gear and content. And then it was like, oh, let's just shift it to Moab now. Like, Hunter, we love you. We're going to support you. Let's just focus on making Moab 240 the best race you can possibly have, and giving your all to train, and going, putting everything on the line for that race. That would be,
All right. Well, maybe I'll see you out here in person.
yeah, that would be cool.
Well, Hunter, again, sorry about the ankle injury. Wow. Particularly as a professional, for everyone. I mean, it's emotionally hard, and as a professional, it's financially hard. And so, hang in there, please. Sounds like you were doing very well emotionally with it. You have a good perspective. And here's a super open-ended question. So, pardon me, but see what we can do with advice for others. I mean, in terms of getting into the sport and trying to make a living at it, you're kind of, pardon me, the poster child. I mean, this is what you're doing. You're 25 years old and you're making a living doing this. So
Yeah.
I think you offer a lot of really good thoughts. Anything else you'd like people to hear?
Yeah, no, great question. And to be like 100% transparent and open about it, I've been in a very lucky situation to be like in the sport since I was 7 years old, and having like my dad that loves the sport too, and like financially be able to just sign me up for these races, and being able to do 200 plus races is like so fortunate. I'm so lucky and grateful for that. So not everybody has that lucky draw to have a family member that loves the sport just as much as you do, and it's like, I'm of course gonna just do this race, and you can tag along with me. It's not like he's not doing the races and just paying for me to do them. So I'm lucky to have this like runway to like build up this experience, build up this knowledge of the sport, and then come into it with like, okay, now it's time for me to make a living, and these races cost a lot of money, and these FKTs is like, running the length of Florida, that the Florida Trail, that costs like over $10,000. Like, my family doesn't have that money, so I had to find a way to pay for that, or it's not going to happen. So it kind of forced me to figure out a way to do it, and there's so many different ways to do it. Don't feel like just because one path is closed for you doesn't mean this other path here is open. Like, I was coming in from adventure racing. I had no sponsors. There was no prize money in races. The only thing to make money was TV shows. And these once every 2 years would be a TV show, and you would get lucky to be on it. And then if you win it, you're set for at least 20, 30 years. But I didn't win these TV shows, so it didn't really pay that much. I was like, who would have thought that running would make a living, or like FKTs would make a living? But I think just try different things. If that's content, if that's you being the best athlete possible, commit to it. Have some savings and just train so hard to like give it your all to try to win a race. And if you win that race, if you win Rest of Six, you're set. You win Cocodona now, it seems like you're set too. So it's like, choose those races and give it your all to train, and then you don't have to worry about content at all. If you're like 99.9% of other athletes, like, okay, maybe content's your thing. Maybe you being sponsored, or like working for Teva and like being a product guy, and you race on the side. There's so many different ways to do it that like, if you want to make it work, don't take a no for answer, and just keep trying and figure out how you can provide value to people and brands. And there's no.
And thank you, Hunter, because the and is have an attitude like yours. I mean, you started with gratitude.
Yeah.
And
Always.
gratitude is kind of the heart of existence, heart of being good in the world and having people appreciate who you are and feeling comfortable. So thank you. That was a fantastic attitude. Thank you for your advice. And wow, I hope I meet you in person. I'll be over near Austria in the end of June. So maybe if you're still there, we can say hello. World Masters Mountain Running Championships are 15 miles from the border in Austria in end of June. Yeah. And maybe I'll see you in Moab in the fall. And Hunter, keep up the good work. You're inspiring me. Thank you.
I appreciate it, Buzz. Thanks for everything you've done, and giving me even the platform to do this for a living. Like, fastest known time website was what got me into running in the first place. Like it's a funny story. Like I did all these adventure races and I was like, what's next for me? And my dad and I were just sitting at a campsite one night and on close to the Appalachian Trail in North Carolina. And I'm like, oh, wow, the Appalachian Trail. Like, how long is this? And I looked up the Appalachian Trail and I was like, wow, I wonder if I could run this thing. Like, what's the FKT for it? And at the time, I was like, oh, 45 days? That seems very doable. Like, yeah, I was so naive to think that, like, I could just go from adventure racing straight into setting the hardest FKT ever. And that kind of sparked in me of like, okay, what if I can do this? And then, like, a month later, my dad and I did like a test run. So he got in his van and he supported me for like 3 days on the Appalachian Trail to see how many miles I could do. And I was averaging like 45 miles a day. I'm like, okay, wow, maybe this is possible. 5 years later, I'm still not fully ready for it, but maybe very, very soon I could be, yeah, ready and go after something like that. So thank you for setting that all up and yeah, sparking that idea. And I think it was even it was the old website too. So yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Excellent.
Wow.
Well, fastestknowntime.com is a lasting legacy worldwide. It provides people a place to play. And thanks for that call out, Hunter. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Thank you for joining me. I feel like I'm with all my friends. This is Buzz Burrell, and I'll be back 2 weeks from today, delivering more thoughts you've probably never heard before. This podcast is a production of Ultra Sign Up and releases every other Tuesday, alternating with The Trailhead with Zoe Rome and Brendan Leonard. If you've enjoyed this, please subscribe and click that button that says 5 stars because that helps other people find this.